Hey, what's going on, fam? So this is going to be a part two, basically, to my discussing non-constructive discourse video, my last one. And basically, the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm seeing a lot more examples of when people are not measured with their words, and how when people don't take accountability for their words, it can backfire on them. And how people need to take accountability for their words because words matter. And if you've studied Neely Fuller, who I'm always kind of mentioning, especially in reference to the code and understanding white supremacy, I've been holding Yvette and Tone accountable a lot for not being accountable for previous words that they've said. And some of the things I'm about to say do not change the fact that they have not been accountable for things that they've said. However, and that's the reason why I'm using the screen cap I'm using, there have been a lot of people on the FBA B1 side who have also not been accountable for things they said. Now, before I start talking about really what I'm intending to talk about in this video, let me say this. As I've said before, and what I'm trying to do with this video is re-emphasize that the code should be the leader, because people are fallible, people are flawed, nobody's perfect. Event and Tone aren't perfect, and I'm not holding them to the standard of being perfect. But neither is Jason Black or Professor Truth or Tarina Sheeb, and nor am I holding them to the standard of being perfect. The reason why I even sided with Yvette and Tone in the first place, even though I had problems with them before the ADOS movement really even picked up, or before I kind of jumped on the train of the ADOS movement, the reason why I still jumped on it was because I was not holding them to the standard of being perfect. Because if you guys remember my last video, the screen cap I used, it was showing timestamps of me having problems with Yvette and Tone and their stances on interracial dating, and how kind of that shows that they don't understand white supremacy, well before I ever made an ADOS video. It was at least 6 to 7 months before I ever made my ADOS versus Pan-Africanism video. And again, go check out the part one of this video to see the timestamp with the screen cap so you can see what I'm talking about. But one of the things that I've emphasized is that I'm not biased towards either side, even though I've been going in on Yvette and Tone a lot more because still to this day, haven't gotten an adequate explanation for some of the rhetoric coming out of the down ballot strategy and movement. That's why I kept going in on it. And I felt like it was a dangerous, suicidal strategy, and I still feel that way, which is why I'm still not fully done, even though I'm basically almost done with that, talking about the down ballot strategy and Byron Allen, which I also have some questions about. Um, that doesn't mean that I've never had a problem with Jason or Tariq or Professor Truth. As I've said, it's just that they haven't been pushing a strategy that I find is as dangerous as um, anything that Yvette and Tone have pushed. But that doesn't mean I don't have any problems with um, the FBA B1 side of things. And one of the main things that I've always had a problem with, especially with someone like Brother Jason Black, and I know a lot of FBA followers are not going to be happy with me for saying this or pointing this out, but the screen cap that's being used is one of the problems that I've had with the Brother Jason Black, is that he's too harsh. He goes in on single mothers to the point where sometimes it seems like he has a issue with women, or he hates women or something like that. I'm not trying to say that the brother does, because again, that doesn't mean that single mothers can't be critiqued or anything. Sometimes, especially certain kinds of single mothers that are producing certain kinds of people in our community, they should be attacked or they should be critiqued. But these blanket statements about single mothers over and over and over for years, these are the kind of things that leave openings for people to want to follow an Yvette Carnell or an Antonio Moore. These kind of statements are inappropriate. Somebody came up on my channel and said, has Tariq apologized for his single mother statement? No, from what I've seen, he hasn't. He should, and he hasn't really gone back and repeated that, so it's pretty indicated that he does not believe that anymore. And even when he defended himself, he kind of still was basically co-signing or still kind of signaling that he still agrees with that statement. I'm talking about Tariq right now. His statement about how single mothers shouldn't get reparations, even though I feel like he only did that because he feels like the people who were using it against him had no constructive intent. So he was just being a smart mouth and making it seem like he didn't care about saying that, or he had no regret saying that, as a way to defend himself and to let them know that they're not going to shame him or make him go away with shame or something. That's what it seemed like to me. But nonetheless, whatever excuse I think his reasoning was for not really apologizing and almost basically doubling down on his single mother statement when he was confronted with it. And I saw the tweet. I don't have the tweet, but I saw it, and I saw where he basically was like, "Yeah, I said that, and I meant it." Like, that's basically the gist. That's not exactly what he said, but that's basically the gist of what Tariq said, when I did see him address that video, that old video of him being shared. This kind of rhetoric, again, is what opens the door for people to want to listen to an Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore, because this is a very misogynistic vibe to what Jason Black is doing, especially with this targeting of single mothers. Even though he has gone in on black men before and has called out black men for not honoring their responsibilities and helping to create single mothers, he still has gone in on single mothers a lot more. And that's not appropriate. It's not correct. It's not appropriate, and he should not be doing that. That's one thing that he's leaving the door open for people to follow an Yvette and an Antonio. Another thing that he's done, that I had a problem with for a while, and now it's being used against him, or not had a problem with for a while, but that I've had a problem with when he's doing these attacks or exposés on Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell, is that he's not clear that when he attacks them, conversations have nuance. A lot of things have a lot more details, and you can't say something is an absolute. And if you don't give the nuance that's necessary, people can easily take your words and run with it as an absolute if you are not clear. And it's hard to give an example because I don't want to give too complex an example to illustrate the point. But if I say red cars are bad, right? And I don't mean all red cars, I just mean red cars that I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example, but I can't. But basically, um, you have to have nuance. So when Jason Black points out Antonio Moore's statements about entrepreneurship, that's fine, because Antonio Moore should also have nuance, and he should make it clear that just because you have a business or anything like that, that doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you can't build wealth. Antonio Moore should be clear about that. He should make it clear that he's not speaking in an absolute when he says entrepreneurship is not the path to black wealth for the majority of black people. Does that mean that no black person or that some black people can't build wealth? Or is it not true that the white supremacists have attacked black entrepreneurship in order to prevent us from building wealth? All of that is true. And if Antonio Moore does not make that clear, that opens the door for people like Jason Black to say the things he said. But on the other hand, if Jason Black is not clear that starting a business is not the only path or is not some solution to white supremacy, then he opens himself. Because one thing that Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell have always made clear that I've agreed with, and again, that's another thing too, some people, they will start abandoning principles that they used to believe in just because somebody who they don't like is one of the main people that have been pushing that idea. I'm not going to abandon anything that I believed in just because Antonio Moore or Yvette Carnell have been the people that have been making sure that that is clear. And what I'm referring to is the fact that this idea that all of a sudden we're all going to be entrepreneurs and then that's going to help us end white supremacy and get out of white supremacy. First of all, everybody can't be a business owner. Somebody has to be an employee. Because if everybody was a business owner, or even every black person was a business owner, then we don't need money. We should go back to the barter system. If you don't know what the barter system was, it was when people exchanged service for service or good for good. So if I was a carpenter and you needed a wall built and you were a farmer, guess how you would have to pay me because we didn't use money? You would have to pay me in corn or lettuce or whatever, you know. Um, because everybody was their own business person. Everybody self-sustained themselves. So if we're going to live in a system like that and not a capitalist system that uses money, then we should all go back to being barter, into a barter system. Number two, we've seen plenty of black business owners. We have black business owners, and we're still under a system of white supremacy. And those black people who are business owners are not all of a sudden exempt from the system of white supremacy because they own a business. So let's use common sense here, family. Let's use nuance. If Jason Black is not clear that he is not saying that black business is the way to topple white supremacy, he opens himself up to Antonio Moore saying he sounds like a Republican. Oh, you guys just got to pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. All you have to do, it's not really about white supremacy. It's about your laziness or your behavior or your failure to start a business. These are white supremacist talking points. And it's very hard to defend Jason Black when he does not make what he's trying to say clear. Just like it's hard to defend Antonio Moore when he does not make what he's saying clear. That's why Jason Black was able to say the things he said about Antonio Moore. And that's the reason why they had impact to the point where Antonio Moore now has to defend himself against what was said. Because Jason Black did make a lot of good points in his previous videos. And the reason why I'm saying all this is to say that people are not engaging in constructive discourse on both sides. People are not being nuanced. People are not being measured with what they say. And people are not apologizing for things they've said in the past, which opens the door for people to use their rhetoric against them, especially if they didn't mean that rhetoric. And some of this single mother rhetoric that has come out of the FBA B1 camp is unacceptable. And I cannot co-sign it. And again, this is why I made the speeches about standing in my integrity or standing in your integrity. That was not just for the ADOS people. That was for us FBA B1 people as well. Certain ADOS people have tried to come on my channel and decide that I'm biased because they don't like the fact that I'm calling out down ballot. And I told them I'm not held to your standard of what's biased and what's not biased. I'm held to my own standard, and I will show that by my behavior. But now that it has come to a point where I do have to address some of the things, the inappropriate things that Jason Black and Tariq Nasheed and even Professor Truth have engaged in. There's too much aggressive talk that comes out of that movement. There's too much ad hominems. There's too much arbitrary declarations like we're going to exile people when we know we don't really have that power. We can exile them from our own personal channel and our own personal space, but we can't exile people from black empowerment and these kind of things. What we can do is call people out based on the facts and the merits of what they've said and done. And Jason Black has done some of that. Despite some of the defenses that has come out of the Antonio Moore Yvette Carnell camp, they still have not provided adequate explanation for all of these semi-democrat talking points, all of the black and brown, all of the these other programs can help too type language, all of this soft language, all of this borderline Democrat shill language that is in that report that he read. That's undeniable. There is a lot of that language in that report that Tone and Yvette has still not addressed. But people like Jason Black leave them with openings to not have to address it because they have so much stuff that they've said and done that they have not addressed. So you're giving your enemies or the people who you're trying to expose or extinguish from the movement openings to stay in the movement, whether you want them to be or not, because you have not addressed your single mother comments. You have not made it clear that you're not telling us that we're all just all of a sudden going to be black businessmen and that's going to topple white supremacy, because it's not. What's the point of fighting for reparations if all we have to do is start a business and pull ourselves up? And if that's not what you're saying, Jason, you need to make that clear. And also on the Dr. Darity stuff, I will say in his defense, he has always made it clear that the baby bonds and the other stuff in his other statements is not alone, is what does not satisfy a black agenda, does not satisfy closing the wealth gap, and does not suffice for reparations. Dr. Darity has made that clear. However, he did not make that clear in that report, and him and Tone allowing all those other people to help write that report if it was really them in charge of it and it wasn't these other people in charge of it, allowing Darity and Tone to participate, and then they're just running around taking credit for it. They need to make it clear that they don't agree with everything in that report. Otherwise, that leaves the opening for the things that Jason Black said, because there is a lot of borderline Democratic shield talk in there. And again, that lines up with a lot of the borderline Democratic shield talk that they have not answered for in their Democratic down ballot strategy. So at the end of the day, I'm not abandoning my issues with them because I don't feel like they understand white supremacy. That's Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell. I still feel like Jason Black, Tariq Nasheed, and Professor Truth understand it more than Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell. That's why they're willing to say the words white supremacy a lot more often than Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell. And I believe that Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell's lack of understanding white supremacy is part of the reason why there's so much borderline Democrat talk coming out of their camp. I saw Yvette Carnell share a video today with Michael Moore, who's a known Democrat, talking the same down about, oh, you guys need to go vote for state and local senators and all these people who pass green light laws against us. They're still pushing that, which is dangerous. So I'm still going to have a problem with that, and I'm still going to call that out. But at the same time, I cannot give certain things a pass. Some of the language that comes out of the FBA B1 community is too harsh, it's too arbitrary, it's too dictatorial. There's a lack of humility from all sides. There's too much ego from all sides. And again, I'm kind of changing the topic of this video because I don't know what it should be or what it will be. But that's also what this video is about, is the ego and the fact that the code is the leader. The code should always be the leader. And for those of you who don't know what the code is, it's something that you just know once you understand white supremacy and you understand correct behavior and appropriate behavior. It's not something that is written down. The white supremacists who have their own code, they don't write their code down. They don't have a code document that they email to each other about the white supremacy code. So the closest thing, like I said, to a written copy of what the black code should be is Neely Fuller's code book, is Neely Fuller's compensatory code word guide and his book. Those are the closest. But even those I wouldn't say are official 100% guides to the code. It's just something that you understand. And there's a lot of off-code behavior coming from both sides. The attacks on black single mothers, the blanket attacks. It's one thing to say something about single mothers in general, but the blanket attacks on single mothers are off-code. The not making it clear that you're not trying to tell us that we're all just going to business our way out of white supremacy. That's off-code if you're not making it clear that that's not what you're saying. Obviously, Tone and Yvette's constant borderline Democrat, liberal shield talk is off-code. Their non-accountability for their words is off-code. Their hypocrisy and trying to use Tariq's old videos when they have, especially Yvette at least, has plenty of old videos that put her interest or her true motives in question. She's not answering for her old videos, but she's trying to make Tariq answer for his old videos. So there's just a lot of off-code behavior and hypocrisy from all sides. And this is why the code has to be the leader, fam. And that's all I wanted to say with this video, is just point out those things. There are flaws from the FBA B1 side that need to be addressed. Otherwise, you're leaving the openings for people to continue to side with Yvette and Tone, despite their dangerous borderline Democrat rhetoric. And Yvette and Tone, if you really have good intentions for black people and ADOS people, and you want your movement to be as strong as it possibly can be and not be fractured and weakened by the FBA B1 split, then you need to answer and be accountable for your Democratic shield talking points, for your previous statements about Bernie, and own what you said and apologize for what you said. and apologize for the confusion that you have caused, especially with your down ballot strategy. Otherwise, you're going to leave your movement a lot weaker than it could have been. And if your goal is to truly get us reparations, you want your movement to be as strong and have as many supporters as possible. But anyway, fam, that's another rant. That's just me talking about this whole issue and situation. So like, share, subscribe, and peace.